Right, guys. Um, Someone was asking, or a few people have asked in the past about healthcare here, and I really didn't know much about it, um, but I do now because I've been to hospital and around various doctors and started off in the dentist thing. So I went to the dentist, and this is we're now 12 days in. So I've been through the works, but but if you come out the other side, and there's a lot of good news as well. Anyway, so so the healthcare system. So I went to the dentist. That was on the 22nd, and the night before I'd gone to the A&E because I had this big swelling. I was like a pelican, and I had an idea it was like tooth related, and I was heading to the dentist, but it was too late. I was too late because it was infected, abscessed, and it's spread. And if it spreads any more, you can actually die. So 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 I thought I'd better get to the A&E, and they said go to the dentist in the morning. So I went to the dentist, and he was horrified. He couldn't hide it, through his professionalism and all that. He said this is a big problem, and he took the X-rays and that. Fair play to them. And they had a good X-ray machine. It takes the whole lot. It comes around. The X-ray moves around. Good piece of machinery. And I'll be going back to the dentist, but more about that later. Um, so so I had this big thing here, and I had a bit of a bad night. I couldn't. What happens is when you get this big swelling here, it starts. Well, it did two things. Firstly, it starts. It doesn't straight away constrict the airways, although it can. So I was told later, and but what it does do, or what it did do in my case, is produce all this saliva, not phlegm, saliva, and just produces it, and as you swallow, there's more saliva coming up than there's going down. So you've just got to spit it out, and that gets worse and worse. Now the problem there was I couldn't drink because anything you drink or you take, and I was taking tablets, but they won't go down because the the uh, the pressure, not on the breathing at this stage, but the pressure on your swallowing uh, becomes a big problem. And then you with the airwaves thing, you're going to start to drown on your on your on your and you can't get anything in. So that's the position I was in, and my voice went. It's still not right, but it's better. My voice went like Pinky and Perky. It's like so. I turned up with the dentist anyway. He was good, and he said, "Right, go to Plevin straight away. Go to the hospital or the doctor for consultation. They send you to whichever hospital." So I went to the doctor, and they're very good. I mean, if you make a big effort, I mean, I make an effort anyway with the Bulgarian, and I tell them, and usually someone pops up, which someone did, and he said, "Which language you speak?" I said, "English." She said, "Right," and she said, "Right, go to the," and you got to remember all these things because they only tell you once. and you got to listen. Although you're in all this, all this turmoil, pain, whatever. It wasn't that much pain. It was just like I couldn't breathe, swallow, breathe, anything, nothing. So they sent me up to this room, and the woman there was from our town here. So as soon as they know that, it's pretty. They give you a bit more. That's what it's like here. They give you a bit more, personal treatment kind of thing. And even chat about where you live and all that. So she said, and she shouldn't have done actually. She said, I will put you on antibiotics, and we'll come back tomorrow. And I said, well, tomorrow. I said, why don't I was thinking, like, why don't I just go to the hospital? I need some treatment. Yeah. She said, no, we'll try this because you've got to pay. And I think she was trying to save me some money, which I'll tell you about that as well in the later on. So I went home, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And she said, I'll be in Troyan. I'll be in our town on duty the day after tomorrow, so come and see me there. Which, that she was trying to help me a journey and also some money, but like that wasn't really. It kind of turned out that wasn't really a great idea. So anyway, so I went in saw her. She said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting worse." She said, "Get in your car," and she rang up. She rang up the hospital. This is how quick it is in Bulgaria. You don't have to wait for anything. You don't have to wait, nothing, to see a doctor or anything, which I'll explain further. So anyway, it's like, she said, get in your car. So I've got nothing with me, no overnight bag. I didn't know where it was going. And I actually had the presence of mind. I said, look, give me the address. I put everything in the phone. I've got this sat-nav, which turned out to be, very useful. It's actually a crypto sat-nav, but you can use Google Maps offline as well. So she said, this hospital's in blah, 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 Plevin. She said, you'll find it. I would never have found it. So I said, look, I need to put it in the phone. So I did. And I had no phone charge yet. Nothing. Because you've got to take stuff with you to these hospitals. You've got to take more or less everything you need. Like even a towel. I had nothing. Just a shirt on my back. Which is kind of how I operate anyway. Around here. But from now on, I'm gonna get a bag together. I'm gonna put it by the door, or in the car. Better off in the car, but things go manky in the car. So maybe just by the door. And before I left, to add to the drama, we were having earthquakes. It was aftershocks. There was quite a big earthquake just over the border in Turkey. It was actually in the sea near Istanbul, this side. And there was aftershocks all over Bulgaria. And here, this house, it wasn't like this kind of thing, a quake like that. It was like it was like buzzing. It was like shaking. Everything was bouncing around the room. And I was thinking, the day before I was chopping wood, it was all right, a couple of days before. And then when things happen like this, people will know when you get a reaction to something or a sting or something like that. Everything happens can happen pretty quickly. And that's what was happening. It was happening pretty quick. I said, like, well... So we got to this place, this hospital, and it was like the typical, like, just Soviet thing. But it said it was in the right place, and these guys, I was saying to them, ear, nose, and throat, because that's what it said, ENT. But it's something slightly different, but it's YNG. And I didn't know what it was, the exact words. And anyway, I said, look, it's the 7th floor. And there was only one building, the 7th floor. So they said, all right. I said, I've got a big problem here. I couldn't hardly talk. And he said, right. Then he cottoned on then. He said, right, there's the building over there. Go to the 7th floor. So I went up there, and there was this, like, everything was darkened. It was about 9 o'clock at night by this time. And it was on, the night shift. And I was lucky that this doctor, the doctors knew I was going, because she rang up and she told them that this is what I was going to need, which was an incision here. I've got a hole there. They make a hole there, and they actually made 2 holes, which are very painful when they were touching them. And at the back of my jaw, and that's where a lot of the shit came out as well. Anyway, so it goes in, and this doctor, luckily, they both of the doctors, and I think one of them had been drafted in to give this lad a hand. Because I don't know what stage these guys are at. I think they're full doctors, but the post-grads, so junior doctors or whatever. I don't know the grade. Don't know. I was trying to work it out all the way through. But anyway, but this one guy, he was fantastic, And so they took a look and it's like that, and he realised if they put me under, they had to do this. They could do it. They could do it while I was awake, which is what happened. And because they needed me to breathe and swallow as much as I could, and it was difficult. That was the hardest part. It wasn't much else. Now, they thought it was like a superbug situation, which turned out, I don't think it was really. I think it was all just old shit and a new reaction to this abscess, which is one step too much, and that's what happened. And so I don't think it was a superbug. They thought it was. They thought it was something like that. At first, well, they didn't know any history, and I've had a few abscesses, but they just go away. And I'm thinking, well, it's gone away. The next day. No, overnight, it's gone. So I'm thinking, well, I can't go to the doctor now, there's nothing there. But it must have all been building up. My head must have been just a bucket of garbage, and which it was. That's what it was. That's what it was. Because I know now. Because I'm all cleansed, exercised. So anyway, it's there, and I'm glad it happened this way, because they said, right, we're going to do the procedure straight away. We're going to get you in the operating theatre. And I was like, by this time, I was tired. And I was like, with the, I hadn't slept, couldn't sleep, because I kept waking up because I couldn't swallow, I couldn't breathe. So I kept just having to, spit everything out. So, without being too graphic. So that's where it was, and I hadn't slept for 2 nights, and I hadn't eaten anything or drank anything, which is You know, I'm used to not eating, but not without water, and I was getting really dehydrated. So that was the danger. The danger was the breathing, and they said that's what they told me as well, because they didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, till they opened it all up, but they said to me, "We'll have to keep you awake," and which wasn't too bad in itself. But what was bad was when I was lying on the operating table with my head back, I couldn't swallow. Everything was just going to the towards the airway. It was a nightmare, really. That was the danger. And they said, "Well, you could, we might have to put a tracheotomy." And he said, "That's when it's starting to get a bit more complicated then, or serious." That's what they said. Which, yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't want that, really. For such a simple, if you can look these up on YouTube, actually, just the draining of a neck abscess. There's one there. It's exactly what they did to me, but this woman, she was asleep under anaesthetic. But I was happy that they said we're going to keep you awake, because I was thinking, well, at least I'll know if they're putting this pipe in or whatever. And it was my job. I had a big job there to try and keep this airway, keep breathing. That was my job, and that's what they told me. They said, you've got to keep breathing, so they did the neck, and that was easy. That was, I've seen these things. I kind of watch Mr. Popsit now and again on the YouTube. He's a guy called Greg Lynch, and he does all these procedures. And so they basically numb the area and just give you an incision, and then that was it. That was it. The floodgates. Whew. And that was good, because it started easing the pressure on the whatever you're doing to swallow around here, and that seemed to help a little bit. But the real difficult part was when they had to get to the back of my mouth, and I had to keep, as they were in there, I had to keep swallowing and breathing, which was very, very difficult, because they had to get in there with the needles, and they said, don't move, because there's a nerve there which basically would kill you if you move. And I said, they're quite straightforward, they don't like. I watched the American ones, and they're like always apologising and all that. They said, they go, "Don't move," and I could see them coming in with all these. There was two of them, and they were coming in either side, and then they had to make a hole. This isn't a massive thing, if you watch it. If you watch it, but the situation was precarious because of the breathing type thing. So, and I knew what was happening. So, and I knew kind of what they were going to do as well. And it wasn't that complicated, but it was, and it wasn't. The actual condition and the procedure wasn't serious, but the situation was, with the breathing and the fluids and all that. And they kept saying, breathe, breathe, breathe. And I was trying, and I kept coughing, and wow. And we had to stop for a little bit, a couple of times. I said, just give me a minute, just calm down a little bit. Calm down. And then they had to they've got to get in there and try and push everything out. They they had the tube in there as well, sucking the stuff out. He said, oh my God, where's all this? Where's all this stuff coming? He said, are you seriously ill? I said, I don't know. He said, have you had any serious illnesses that, you've got to tell us? I said, no, not as far as I know. Well, I wouldn't know. How would I know? And then after a few days, it was all coming back. They had quite a big abscess. But it went away straight away. But all the shit must have been there. Must have just gone up into all the cavity around the back. I don't know. But that's what was in there, and they're pulling it all out. So I've had a really good, MOT, cleansing. And I kind of knew then, I mean, I might be wrong now, it might flare up again. I kind of knew then what this was all old shit. That was my feeling. And the latest one was just, it was pushed down here because basically maybe there was no room for any more crap up there. But if I'd have got to the dentist another 5 days earlier, maybe this would have been avoided, but I might not have been cleaned out. So that it all can be positive, absolute plus. And like straight away when you get in there, they're taking tests straight away. They're taking all your blood. So they knew by the morning. Overnight, they worked overnight on all the blood samples, on like blood sugar and because he kind of said, have you got diabetes? Have you got? I said, I don't know. I've never been tested for anything. This is the first time I've ever been in the hospital, apart from the A&E in the UK, which are pretty good, I have to say. The A&E in the UK always been good when I've gone in. I've had a few incidents like a broken toe and stuff like that. And I've never stayed overnight, ever. Never. And but I've been in and out. And they like to get you out of the hospitals in UK, not in. So, and the same I can't say for the GPs in the UK. I've found them wanting big time. I think that a lot of them are affected. A lot of them are. I don't know what it is. Whether it's just a constant stream of people or whatever. But a lot of them are borderline. The ones I've seen, they seem to be. Half of them are just like half cut. And I've seen quite a few GPs like waste of time. The A&E's good. Because they're the people on the front line and they see things, they've got to treat them straight away. So they get to know what's wrong with people. And I've taken people plenty of times as well to the A&E. Always been good. So that's the only thing. I can't compare the two health services, except for the waiting list, which like in Bulgaria, there isn't one. Everyone gets seen straight away. So anyway, that was that. Boom. So I'm all cleaned out and everything. Then he said, we're going to put you on like intravenous antibiotics for three days. He said, you're going to be here maybe for 3 days. I said, oh, right, okay. But you're going to have to pay. I said, how much? And he'd say, he wouldn't say. Well, they're not going to say. He said, we don't know. We can assess you tomorrow, but we don't know what condition you've got. And I think that they still didn't accept that. Like, I recovered, fully recovered within kind of 3 days or so, And I did have a secondary problem then, which is another story, which is with my feet and the uric acid, because these drips and that. So all this time, I'm not eating. So for 2 days before the hospital, I hadn't ate or drank anything, right? And in the hospital, I couldn't eat the food. So anyway, I'll go on to that, and I'll do part 2 of the stay in hospital. But that was, I was thinking, like, I think I'm out the woods here, but like, I don't know. I said, if this is like Ebola type flare or whatever you call them, superbug, it could be anything, and that could be it. But like, that's what we're all faced with, You get one of them. But anyway, so that's part 1, and part 2 I'll go through the hospital stay. Okay, cheers.